Welcome to my everyday plant-based series. Today we are making some delicious stuffed eggplants that you're going to love. I loved it so much that I ended up having it for both lunch and dinner. This is a really nice potluck meal to make, or just when you want a hearty and satisfying meal. Let's start by cooking the quinoa according to package instructions. As with most of my grains, I like to always rinse the quinoa beforehand. I usually cook quinoa in a pot with 1 part quinoa to 2 parts water. Today I used 1 cup of quinoa, which covered about 4 eggplants with some to spare. Bring the water to a boil, then turn down the heat to simmer. Once the water is all absorbed, cover the pot to dry steam it to create a fluffier texture, then set aside. Even though I'm using quinoa today, you don't have to. Feel free to substitute this with brown rice. Black rice would actually be quite nice too, couscous and even leftover pasta. After that, let's prepare the eggplants. Choose your eggplants according to the size you want them to be as a serve. Usually I like to choose smaller or medium-sized eggplants because they're big enough of a serving, and also smaller eggplants I find tend to be less bitter. Cut them in half and using a spoon, scrape out the center flesh of the eggplant halves. The trick is to leave enough flesh around the skin so that it holds its shape when baked. Also, the eggplant tends to oxidize and brown quite quickly, which doesn't look too great, but otherwise it's fine. Chop the eggplant flesh into smaller pieces and then set aside. While we're at the chopping board, let's dice up 1 brown onion and mince 3 to 4 garlic cloves. For a quicker recipe, you can use onion and garlic powder instead. In a pan over medium heat, drizzle in some olive oil or veggie stock. I'm using veggie stock today to make the entire recipe whole foods. Add in the onions, cooking until they're soft and translucent. Then add in the garlic and saute before adding in 1 teaspoon of dried coriander, 1 teaspoon of turmeric, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and 1 teaspoon of cumin. Of course, you can adjust the cayenne pepper according to your taste. Toast the spices to bring out all of the flavours. You can also splash in some water or veggie stock if it starts to stick to the bottom of the pan. After 1 to 2 minutes, add in the chopped eggplants and cook for a few minutes, stirring frequently. Season with some salt and black pepper. When done, remove from heat and add in 1/4 cup of sun-dried tomatoes and 1 tablespoon of pine nuts. I was quite light-handed with these extras, so feel free to add more in. Then mix in the quinoa. Honestly, this is up to you how much quinoa stuffing you'd like. I initially only wanted a few grains interspersed throughout the eggplant mixture, but decided to make it more quinoa based, so I added everything in. Line the eggplants onto a baking sheet lined with baking paper. Generously scoop in the quinoa stuffing, and it looks quite good when it's overflowing. Bake the eggplants in a preheated oven at 190 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes. As it's baking, I chop up some fresh parsley. You can sub this with coriander too to garnish on later. To bring everything together, I'm going to create a delicious balsamic tomato sauce that's super easy to make, and it goes so well with the stuffed eggplants. So I kind of eyeballed this, but add in a few cups of tomato passata or tomato puree and pop in 1 or so teaspoons of garlic. Pour in balsamic vinegar and whisk together. Let it simmer for 8 to 10 minutes. When the eggplants are done, take it out and let it cool slightly before serving. To serve, I like to create a bed of the quinoa stuffing just for artistic purposes, and then place the eggplants on top. The fresh coriander nicely brightens up the dish, and I like to add in more sun-dried tomatoes on top. I also like to sprinkle over more pine nuts, and just before we serve, don't forget the tomato sauce. Generously drizzle it all over the eggplants. And there you go guys, these stuffed quinoa eggplants are so delicious, they're pretty easy to make and they're so healthy because they're all whole foods. Hey friends, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for getting us to 300 subs over the past few weeks. It's been so nice to connect with everyone over food and we're going to keep going. The recipe is all written out in the description box below, so do check it out and let me know if you guys make it.